goods that were produced and exchanged and distributed that way. And though that was considered to be a very radical phenomenon in Athenian society. So both Plato and Aristotle were confronted with and devoted some of their writings to analyzing markets. This phenomena of exchange and haggling as a way of distributing goods. Both Aristotle and Plato agreed that this phenomena disrupted Athenian society. It was negative. Footnote. Aristotle and Plato thought markets sucked. Just so you know. And they made a very sophisticated argument. They said, you know, particularly Aristotle, who was a little less harsh about markets than Plato, was really against it. But both of them said, you know, this is okay. I mean, this is an honest transaction in a market. You come with one thing, and you exchange it for an equal amount of toil and trouble embodied in something else. You give up 3 hours of your work in the potatoes to get 3 hours of work in a shirt. That's fair. That's, I mean, we don't like it. This, however, they both came down on as disgusting. These people, they're not about equal. They're about unequal. They come with something and they want to take back more than they came with. The stinkers, the crooks. They wanted it banned. Specifically said this should not be allowed. This is the bad thing about markets. This is all about greed. Now again, an aside, for some of you that are literary. Think of the literary character that is described here. This is a person who comes with money to get more money. Everything he touches, he only touches in the interest of making more money. Whatever he buys is to resell for more. Midas, the image of the myth, the notion of the person who couldn't connect to anybody else, for whom every transaction and every other person had become a means to what was driving him relentlessly forever forward. Because of course, when you take your money and you buy something to resell it more, what you do is take this money and reproduce this activity forever. Okay? So this is a mystery that has agitated all commentators on economics, from at least ancient Greece to the present. What is this about? Is this sick? Is it evil? Is it natural? Is it good? What is this? For those that have even understood this much. And Marx is part of this group. He wants to understand, what is this? What is going on here? How does this work? What are the consequences of this being part of all modern markets? So, like a good theorist, he begins to analyze it. The first example, the one that probably comes to your mind, is the example of someone who has a name in modern society, as this person had a name in a long time. This is the description of a merchant. A merchant. A merchant is a person who begins with money and buys objects in order to resell them for more money. Many of you have occasions to visit your neighborhood, in quotation marks, convenience store. What the hell is that? That's a merchant. You go in there and you buy a bottle of Pepsi and a bag of potato chips. You do understand, even without Marx, that whatever you pay that fellow in the convenience store, he bought those things for less. And he's simply reselling them to you, and he keeps the difference. He starts with M, 60 cents for the bottle of soda. M, he gives up 60 cents, he gets a bottle of soda, and he turns around and sells it to you for $1.50. He has taken his money, his value, and he has made it expand. He started with 60 cents, and after you come in there to buy the soda and the potato chips, he has $1.50. Merchant. Now Marx begins to see where he's going to go. So I'm not going to use more of his language so that you recognize it when you read it, if you read it in Capital itself. In these two cases, what everybody accepts is kind of reasonable exchange. When money appears, Marx says, it simply acts as money. Money acts as money. What does he mean? It enables one kind of good to exchange for an equal value of another kind of good. But in these transactions, Marx says, money acts in a different way. It's not the means for one person to get rid of what he has and acquire something else, equal value for equal value. No, here, the whole point is to make your value grow. You engage in this kind of activity to make your value expand. And here comes the punchline. When you use money in a modern capitalist economy, or indeed in any economy, if you use money to make more money, then you're using money as capital. The definition of capital is self-expanding value. That's Marx's definition. Capital exists where and when money can be used in such a way as to become more over and over and over again. A merchant is the perfect example. The merchant buys in order to resell. He buys with money that he hopes by means of reselling to make into more money. But of course, the merchant is therefore engaged in something, Marx says, that smells. Either when he bought the Pepsi bottle for 60 cents, he was getting more than he paid for it. And then, let's suppose it's $1.50 Coke. If he bought it for 60 cents, then obviously he's giving less than he's getting. Then he turns around and sells it to you. His sale to you is an equal exchange. He's giving you $1.50 worth of Coke, and you give him $1.50 worth of money. So either your convenience store ripped off the Pepsi-Cola company, not likely. It's possible. Or the convenience store gave 60 cents to Pepsi for something that is worth 60 cents. And then he turned around and gave you something worth 60 cents, and you gave him $1.50. Schmuck. Right? But something is unequal here. Somehow, either the buying of that Coke or the reselling of it involved an unequal exchange, a hustle. Something smells here. And this is not just a Marxian argument, it's a cultural universality. Merchants are always suspected. You all know that because you suspect it. You understand somewhere, even if you've never been in a class, that there's something about that merchant that's a little smelly. And merchants have always had to deal with the kind of crude grasp of the population that there's something going on here that isn't quite, if you pardon the triple entendre, kosher. And so merchants have had to develop over centuries elaborate arguments, that's a polite word for bullshit, to justify this.
Now, obviously, there's labor in there, particularly in the merchant that, say, in the origins of capitalism, when you have shipping merchants and things like this, there's time and a form of labor. So I'm just wondering, and surely Marx must have recognized this in some way. So is it simply a problem of being uniquely unable to value that labor?
No, no, no.
I mean, there's something legitimate that we can
Yes,
say that
in
the merchant does, because it's some labor.
In volume 2 of Capital, there are long chapters about transportation, about merchants, when they move, how to handle the labor, exactly your question. And Marx calls that part of the labor of a commodity. So that labor is added to the work of producing it, the work of moving it around physically is considered to be productive labor, which a merchant might do or a producer might do. So yes, he deals with that precisely. But he's talking about merchants in the literal buying and selling. Let me give you an example from modern society that will make you understand it. There are people in what we nowadays call the wholesale business or the jobbing business. All they do is they buy stuff, they buy it, and then they resell it. They don't move it, they don't touch it, it actually sits in a certain place, they take ownership of it, they buy it, wherever it is, and they sell it to somebody who picks it up from wherever it is. They are the pure merchant. They buy and resell. There are plenty of examples, past and present, for this sort of thing. Okay? They, therefore, are engaged in an unequal exchange. Let me give you the most dramatic example in the United States, in the world right now. The largest single corporation in America, largest employer and biggest corporation in the United States, is the Walmart Corporation. They don't make anything. They are a company that buys and resells. That's all they do. And they're the biggest employer in the United States. They're bigger than any producing company. They are a merchant. They buy and they sell. And that's all over the place. So Marx is intrigued by this. He says there's another kind of person who starts with an amount of money in a market and ends up with more money, who uses money as capital, because that's all capital is. Money used to make more money. Not money used to buy something to consume. No, no, no. Something. A merchant buys in order to resell. Who's the second one? And the answer is the money lender, or in modern language, the bank. The bank starts with a quantity of money, lends it to you. Under the rule, you must give them back more than they gave you. That more is the surplus value, the amount that your value grows through and in and by means of the act of lending. So the merchant can take money and make more money, can use money as capital. And the money lender can use money as capital. And Marx says those two, merchants and money lenders, have been part of markets wherever markets arose, whether it be in ancient Greece or medieval Europe or modern Spain or any other place. So he says, this capital has been around a long time. Capital isn't new. This is really important, folks. Capital isn't new. And if you want to use the word capitalism, it isn't new either. This was happening, as I told you already, in ancient Greece. That's why Plato and Aristotle wrote about it. So the use of money as capital, capitalism, is very old. But, says Marx, here comes now, you can see where he's going. Marx says there is something new now. For the first time, he says, this happens not only in money lending and not only in merchanting, buying in order to resell, but what is new and different, what makes capitalism the new system in the world, is the stunning reality. This is Marx now. This is his creative insight. That for the first time, capital happens in production.